The child was born but couldn't sit still. 86 years later with no regret. You know that man can't sit still yet. The Great Depression couldn't get him down. He worked for his dad's store in town, collecting money in small amounts for poor whites and blacks in their furniture accounts. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. As he'd collect, he'd talk to folks. He'd hear legends, tales, songs, and jokes. Now this fine treasure he'd record and write. He was colorblind, didn't see black and white. Writer's project for the WPA. Zora Neale Hurston, he earned his pay. Crackers and blacks, they talk for hours. It was a barefoot history, this land of flowers.
From WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network, the week that was on the 23rd of September 2017. This was an interesting week in that the Republicans decided to restart their Edsel, known as a Hopalong Cassidy Health Care Bill, due to a deadline, a technical deadline of the end of September. Under the particular methods they're using, that they only need 50 votes, that is, called reconciliation, they have to get the work done by next week. Thus, they rushed it out willy-nilly and put it upon the people. What the Hopalong Cassidy bill would do is block grant Medicaid monies from the Affordable Health Care Act to the states to set up whatever type of health care program that they desire willy-nilly. Now, there is a difference. Some of the red states will get more money. Some of the blue states that have expanded their Medicaid, I hope I said Medicaid, not Medicare, but have expanded those, will receive less money. Now, for instance, states like California could take whatever monies they get and turn it into a single-payer system. What this means for the insurance industry is that they would be impacted severely in those states. And there are a number of those states in terms of population. We can think of New York, Connecticut, and various others. Now, states like Wisconsin would actually receive about $3 million more than they currently have, whereas their neighbor Minnesota would receive less. In fact, over 10 or 20 years, they'd be roughly down by about $37 million, if I remember correctly here. So what this basically is a disaster for the healthcare industry. It will further destabilize, and what happens at the marketplace, that's the individual coverage that Obamacare covers, will affect the rest of the pie, which is the insurance industry as a whole. What these states will do is go to the minimal amounts of coverage, policies that are forbidden by the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. Policies with very, very high deductibles that are totally worthless, many exclusions, and pre-existing conditions could go out the window also, which would mean that people that have even hypertension, nonetheless cancer, etc., would see their premiums skyrocket, no doubt about it. And this would affect everyone, not only those on the Obamacare roster, but also people that receive health care via their place of employment, workplace. Now, that in itself is very tenuous, too, because you have to look at this as an overall package. The Republicans are now also saying, well, we'll come out with a tax reduction bill. Well, that's possible. They could come up with some sort of tax reduction bill to reduce the taxes on the rich. But the problem is when you do that in a modern industrial, quote-unquote, capitalist economy, you have to replace that revenue, or you have to reduce spending. And since they have decided that they're going to put the majority of quote-unquote spending increases into the military, now I can remember our time with Job with Peace. The military is one of those situations that doesn't generate anything, period. Yes, there are a few jobs involved in these so-called defense contracts, making planes and ships for Admiral and General Kompong. But the problem is there are few people involved in that when you look at the overall national economy. Perhaps people in Mobile will build a few ships. It takes a long time, though, however, to build a ship. And those people will be employed, whereas people in Birmingham will be losing jobs. And this is basically how it goes. If you listen to Numbers Man, that's our macroeconomics program, which will come up this weekend. Incidentally, we talk about our seesaw model. Effectively, what that means is that one area of the economy goes up, or one sector of the economy goes up, another sector comes down. Due to restraints in the demand sector, it just cannot happen. And now we have an unusual situation, well, not unusual situation, but the return of credit card problems with some of the major banks. Consumers are late on their payments, and defaults are starting to rise. And consumers are 70% of this economy. So in other words, it becomes very tenuous. You have what is now called full employment at 4.5, 4.3, whatever. It doesn't matter that much. At one time, we looked at full employment on the ARPA Occam at about 2.3%, which that meant everybody was not employed. Basically, you had an 8 in 10 chance of getting a job. But now, basically, it's 4 or 5 in 10 of getting a job. Jobs are not evenly proportioned demographically, and also jobs are not all equal in terms of remunerations of what you actually pay. And, of course, many of these jobs fall in the quote-unquote $9, $10 an hour minimum, whatever the Fed pays, and a little above that. So, in other words, you're going, $8 to $9 an hour or whatever. Working conditions are not the best. So we've seen more and more of that occur in, quote-unquote, this economy, which in itself is a very tenuous economy. An example of that, the Walmart people will not be hiring any additional hires during what's called, euphemistically, the holiday season. Most of these retailers, and of course there's not that many of them left these days, add workers. Now, the other ones will, the Best Buys and Targets of the world, but these are just temporary workers. They work about roughly about 60 days, and that is the end of that pipe dream. I was talking to someone, and they will probably pick up an additional day at the Walmart enterprise out there, maybe some 2 days, but not. And so what we're talking about basically is about 8 hours. And, well, that's 8 hours, but depending at what rate they're being paid, the 8 hours. And that's part of the problem when you start looking at the overall labor market. Now, these tax plans from DJ Trump will effectively adjust corporate taxes and move those down. Supposedly that would encourage people to repatriate money that is out of the country. And there'll be a one-time fee for that. There are always, costs involved. But still, that would bring money back in that would be invested in U.S. enterprises on the America First emblem. Well, that in itself is only a pipe dream. A private venture does not have to. They'll bring it back, pay the fee, and whatever they decide to do with it, they'll do with it. And that's a crude way of saying it, but that will be what will happen in the quote-unquote marketplace. And at the same time, we see, I just finished a book by Hillary the Monster Clinton. She even talks about robotics and various types of automation involving robotics, whether it be of that or whether it be other types, computerization in the marketplace involved there. So if we start to look at those things, we call it machine learning, incidentally. Machine learning out there that further automates things. And of course, we have for a very long time programs that automate themselves. And at the same time, you see massive mergers starting on now. The latest merger is out there. I don't know if it's completed yet or not. Is the T-Mobile organization and Sprint. Sprint is owned primarily by SoftBank of Japan. What's basically happening, that is just not enough. This is in the continental U.S. Mobile customers out there for all of these mobile predators. So you have the AT&T, the Verizons, and whatever else you got out there. They'll start consolidating together. They'll have plans that are basically about the same, and you see the same consolidation across what is called the wireless people. That's the Comcast of the world, etc. And in various other markets, you're seeing these consolidations. Well, when consolidations happen, workers lose jobs. They can say what they wish, but workers still lose jobs. You have the Whole Food enterprise, now part of the Amazon. The Washington Post, which we use because it's a national newspaper, there, not particularly because of its ideological bent, is now owned by the Amazon enterprise. So the Amazon enterprise will extend its reach. We noticed, I think this week, that Kroger, they are a food chain in Ohio, Illinois, etc. I believe they're the second largest chain. They will do Amazon fulfillment. So in other words, Amazon will have brick and mortar locations for you, just like the Best Buys and various other people of the world. You can go there and return your merchandise. You won't have to ship it back to Amazon. So that cuts out your shipping costs. So in other words, these modernizations are appearing and adaptations are coming. So those things all effectively have an overall effect, not to be redundant here, in the economic scheme of things. We also have self-driving cars, one of the things we're involved in, self-driving cars, trucks, etc. There'll be a massive rollout, at least as scheduled, in the late, what we call Q4 later this year, or Q1 of next year. And that will primarily be from people, the Uber franchise. Uber is moving, that's the so-called gig economy. They're moving as fast as they can to self-driving cars. GM and everybody but Mom's Mabley has something there that says self-driving would be software, not Tesla is there. These things have been out there. Cars can back up, parallel park, etc. now. And with geo-positioning, they can use that to move around in rainstorms, snowstorms, etc. And in the software business, once you start a major, we'll say beta, now it's a little different there. It used to be RC1 or whatever, but anyway, it's very, very quick. You have 100,000 to start with, and then you go in the second stage usually to 500,000, and it could be 1 million of these self-driving cars, etc., all out here driving around as Uber. What that basically means is any problems they have will start to be ironed out within a few months and the first year of their operation, and the adaptation will be very, very quickly in the automobile sector. And once that happens, that affects many things, as Mr. Buffett said. That would even affect his Geico auto insurance and those sorts of things. That will happen in the next 3 to 5 years as it moves into more full swing. So we have a lot of things to look at here in terms of where the economy is going and where the market is going, etc. Won't spend a lot of time on this, but that was just the taxation part that the Republicans came up with. Now, what has also happened here, the old man McCain, he's a senator from Arizona, has threw the proverbial monkey wrench into the Republican plan. This is the Hopalong Cassidy bill. They can only afford to lose 3 senators, I believe it is. Otherwise, they have some trouble ahead there. And right now, the ones publicly committed to not going along with Hopalong Cassidy is Senator McCain and Rand Paul of Kentucky. Now, they also have the senator from Alaska and also from Maine. So Collins and McCoskey of Alaska, those are 2. So if those 3 go, it's gone. Let me read the statement from Senator McCain. Much has been made of this. Senator McCain looks forward to returning to the U.S. Senate tomorrow to continue his work, including on health care reform, the National Defense Authorization Act, and new sanctions on the Russian Republic, Iran, and North Korea. At the request of Senator McCain and his family, the Mayo Clinic released... Oh, this is not the statement. Oops. Wrong statement here. Sorry about that one. So let me go back to Senator McCain's shop and get the right statement here. He's already incidentally returned, so we don't have to deal with that particular item. That was on July 24, but he did issue a statement on the Hopalong Cassidy bill. This should have been the one here on health care anyway. Now, this is time. This is really not what we wanted. But basically what Senator McCain wants to do is return to the regular work of the Senate. Now, this is from Time here. A friendship with Senator McCain is not based on how he votes. Well, Senator McCain is good friends with Graham. Senator McCain said he is not in good conscience vote for the Hopalong Cassidy bill, but made sure to note that it wasn't personal. The bill's offers of my dear friends. Well, yeah, they are his dear friends, but he decided not to do it. And we were looking for the statement of Senator McCain here, and that was what we wanted to read, but unfortunately that statement didn't appear. So thus we have Senator McCain and the senator from Kentucky holding out of it, and because of that, the bill becomes very tenuous. And the headline here, of course, from Politico is the opposition of McCain to Hopalong Cassidy is like sinking the repeal. He announced that, of course, on Friday. I cannot in good conscience vote for the Hopalong Cassidy bill. Said in a statement, legislation drafted by Hopalong Cassidy and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. The deadline, as we said earlier, is the 30th of September. And Rand Paul, of course, announcing his opposition to it. They hold 52 seats here and can only lose 2 votes and still pass the legislation. So if they lose Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Senator McCain, Rand Paul, and Susan Collins, it is sunk. Now, this was a statement that we wanted. He said he would not, this is Senator McCain, without knowing how much it would cost, how will it affect insurance premiums, and how many people will be helped or hurt by it, without a full Congressional Budget Office score, which won't be available till the end of the month. We won't have a reliable answer to any of these questions. I take no pleasure in announcing my opposition, far from it. He continued, the bill offers of my dear friends. So he points to bipartisan, and this is going on with Senator Murray, Senator Alexander of Kentucky, Alexander of Tennessee, showed the same courage in Congress that he showed as a naval aviator. Some course, they failed the last time around. Paul's opposition, he is undecided on the procedural vote, and he said Paul wants to vote against the full repeal. So otherwise, that's kind of a little loophole there. Mike Lee is also undecided to scramble to make good on that 7 anyway. So this is one of these things that is tailor-made here, and it's not the way that you really want to go. This is the sort of thing that you get out here, you immediately get yourself into problems, period. And let's see if I can, these are some of the press releases here. Let's see if we can get these press releases from Senator McCain of regular order. Now, this is the point we want to make. In the Senate, committees of jurisdiction should mark up the legislation with input from all committee members and send their bills to the floor for debate and amendment. This is the only way we might achieve bipartisan consensus on lasting reform, and without which a policy that affects 1/5 of our economy and every American family would be subject to revisal with every changing administration and congressional majority. I would consider supporting legislation similar to that offered by my friends Cassidy and Graham, were yet the product of extended hearings and debates, but without that has not been the case. Instead, the specter of the Senate's 30th budget reconciliation deadline looms on the entire process. We might not be contented to pass the healthcare legislation on party lines. Should not be, as Democrats did when they rammed the Obamacare through the Congress in 2009. If we do so, our success would be as short-lived as theirs when the political winds shift. As they regularly do, the issue is too important and too many lives are at risk for us to leave the American people guessing from one election to the next whether and how they will acquire health insurance. A bill of this impact requires bipartisan support. Senators Murray and Alexander have been negotiating in good faith to fix some of the problems with Obamacare. We talked about that last night, and it's back to Obamacare, and then we'll move on to single payer. But I fear the prospect of one last attempt at a strictly Republican bill has left the impression that their efforts could not succeed. I hope they will resume their work should this last attempt at partisan solution fail. I cannot in good conscience vote for the Hopalong Cassidy proposal. I believe we could do better working together as Republicans and Democrats, and have not yet really tried. Nor can I support it without knowing how much it will cost, how it will affect insurance premiums, and how many people will be helped or hurt by it without a full Congressional Budget Office score, which won't be available at the end of the month. We won't have reliable answers to any of these questions. I take no pleasure in announcing my opposition. Far from it. The bill's offers of my dear friends. I hope that in the months ahead we can join with colleagues on both sides of the aisle to arrive at a compromise solution that is acceptable to most of us and serve the interests of the American people. John McCain. And this is dated the 22nd of September. From Susan Collin, this is from the newspaper in Portland, list a serious defects in her party's latest effort here. Senator Collin all but said she would vote no on the Affordable Care Act repeal bill at an appearance on a Friday, an event in Portland, that's Portland, Maine. Hours later, the bill appeared to be on its death throne as Senator McCain announced his opposition. With all Democrats against the repeal, The Republicans sink their efforts to eliminate it. Colin McCain and Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska were the only Republicans to vote no in a dramatic late-night vote. That was on the 27th of July. I'm leaning against the bill, said after listing a series of serious deficiencies in the Hopalong-Cassidy repeal bill. I'm just trying to do what I believe is right for the people of Maine. And we'll pass Senator McCain in reading the fine points on Hopalong-Cassidy. Collins said, she said insurers could charge high rates to people with pre-existing conditions. The premiums would be so high they would be unaffordable. 20 million Americans and 80,000 Mainers have affordable care insurance. Hopalong-Cassidy is the last attempt this year to repeal Obamacare because the Senate rules mandates a vote by the 30th of September. Republican leadership has been attempting to repeal it for 7 years. Collins said she would likely make her final decision early next week. And this is what is troubling to us. Was the same day that the governor there, Paul LePage, met with Pence, doesn't matter, and was pressing Colin and Angus King, an independent, who caucused with the Democrats to vote in favor. Well, that would be suicidal. There's 80,000 people in Maine. Collins said rural hospitals would be in great danger of closing if the Hopalong-Cassidy bill was approved. If Medicaid is cut, that hospitals will not survive. Collins said it's the biggest employer in town, and it has 180 good-paying jobs. So, not only would people lose access to health care they need, it would be devastating blow to the community. And she is talking about in Greenville, Maine. Page is crazy, but anyway, she said she hasn't seen anything to contradict the analysis showing the clips in Hopalong-Cassidy finding that it would kick in 2026, and that changing the formula for Medicaid would be harmful to many states, including Maine, and by some calculations, Maine would lose $1 billion over the next 10 years. So, and she also, like Senator McCain, bemoaned the idea of not working in a bipartisan manner. She works with the Senate's Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee on a bipartisan solution to Obamacare, and that is obviously the way to go. And let's see, she also criticized as a tactic reported by the Associated Press in which the leadership would allow Alaska to maintain the Affordable Care Act as a way to persuade Murkowski to vote for it. And this is kind of like, what was it, the Nebraska-Louisiana compromise that was back in Obamacare. They got, when the light of day came on them, they had to shelve it. To carve out a special rule that would only apply to one state in order to get a senator's vote is not a good way to make public policy. Comments against Hopalong-Cassidy were praised by Steve Butterfield, Public Policy Director for Consumers for Affordable Health Care in Augusta, Maine. Susan Hanks of Portland, who joined with 50 other people. This is local news here from Portland, Maine. Protesting Hopalong-Cassidy outside the hotel, was less impressed. She said the uncertainty around the bill was terrorizing people who were worried about losing their coverage. No doubt about this. If she's against it, I wish she would come out and say she's against it, said Hanks, who was holding Kill the Bill sign. Now, this is one of the problem has been always with the Republicans in the Senate, this fall in line of philosophy. Falling in line here would cause enormous problems, no doubt about it. It would cause problems for them. It would cause problems for other people also. Let me get to Uncle Carl Robe here. And His title writing in the Wall Street Journal on the 21st, that would have been on 2 days ago. Like Lazarus, I'm not sure who that was, the Republicans' effort to repeal the Obamacare has risen from the dead. Upon on the toe tag, thankfully on the toe tag, after repeal and replace bill failed to pass the Senate. Now comes new legislation championed by Graham and Hopalong Cassidy, which might get the 50 votes needed. And Vice President Pence breaking the tie. Since leaders in the House have signaled they are ready to approve Hopalong Cassidy, as Senate passage would clear the way for ending the individual employer mandates, repealing the health care tax, phasing out the Obamacare exchanges, and their highly prescriptive regulations. Well, he's talking there about things that every other civilized society has. Would give states a block grants. Hopalong Cassidy now spent on Obamacare Medicaid expansion, its tax credits on the exchange, and cost sharing and premium support payments to insurers. States could use the money on healthcare initiatives devised by the legislature and governors that would meet the needs of their low-income citizens. Rather than operating under the Obamacare top-down model, states would choose different ideas in exploring the exposition of federalism. Some might provide low-cost plans for young people, catastrophic health care policies. Others might expand health savings accounts, which is meaningless, and install more sensible regulations. Liberal states could duplicate the Obama exchanges if they want to implement a failed model. In other words, he didn't talk about single payer here. I guess he's frightened of it. Would continue to provide some form of coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. He knows how he phrases that. The passage of Hopalong Cassidy would spark a nationwide conversation, no doubt about that, and state capitals the best way to increase access to health insurance among the working poor and near poor who don't have employer coverage. This would be a good for innovation and competition. Still, only 52 votes in the Senate. The Republicans cannot afford more than 2 defections. Well, supposedly they have 2, but again, the Rand Paul, whether or not he said he won't vote for that, but he might vote for the procedure to move ahead. Must also act before the 30th or the end of the fiscal 2017 to take advantage of reconciliation process, which allows Hopalong Cassidy to pass with only 51 votes. Rand Paul, the libertarian, has already come out against Hopalong Cassidy because it doesn't repeal all of Obamacare, but by opposing the measure that does away with much of Obamacare's structure, he may guarantee the Affordable Care Act endures permanently. By contrast, well, the governor there is a fool in making the perfect enemy of the good. He believes that the state can devise a better program they want. Senator McCain, a strong opponent of Obamacare for 7 years, said he wants to hear from his governor. Anyway, we've already heard. Lisa Murkowski, we've updated that, faces unique health care challenge. A population spread over vast distances, a substantial number of Native Alaskans without reasonable access to doctors and medical centers. Her state is guaranteed a significant flow of federal money on a Hopalong Cassidy. But that's only for now. Susan Collin, we just explained that, faces a similar question, who's in better position to find solutions for Maine. A safe bet is state officials given a college record of homebrewed policy initiatives, not with LePage there they want. For instance, Maine was a pioneer in devising a high-risk pool to cover people with pre-existing conditions. But this is not the way to do it. There's also a question of political accountability. Mr. Paul now vote no on Hopalong Cassidy after his yes vote on the skinny repeal plan. He was against substantial repeal of Obamacare in September after supporting another substantial repeal in July. Well, things go up, things go down. There's really no barometer, I'd say, to do this. Period. Now, finally, an episode we will air the debate between Judge Roy Moore and Luther Strangelove. It was done in Alabama. It was a Lincoln Douglas-style debate, and at that time, D.J. Trump was appearing. He has appeared in Alabama. The headline here is, as Trump campaigns for Luther Strangelove in Alabama, he expressed some doubts. I might have made a mistake. Well, he could have. The polls point to a victory by Judge Moore. If Luther doesn't win, they're not going to say we picked up 25 points in a short period of time. He added, referring to the media, if his opponent wins, I'm going to be here campaigning like hell. He'll face a Democrat, incidentally, named Jones. Luther will definitely win, Trump said. In fact, D.J. Trump was faking out loud there. The Alabama Republican is favored by the establishment. That's old man McConnell. For his part, Luther Strangelove draped himself, as he did in the debate, in all things Trump. Everything about the rally, the mega stadium, the massive flag, Make America Again hats, streamed Trump. There were few signs that the rally was for anyone else except the giant-style campaign-style thing, vote for Luther. Anyway, the president delivered a signature thing there, meandering from one topic to another, prompting cheers of lock her up. I guess it's referring to Hillary the Monster Clinton. And what else did he have to say? Talked at length about Luther Strangelove's willingness to vote in favor of a Republican bill to repeal the Affordable Care Act. That's a disgrace in a poor state like Alabama. A vote for Judge Moore is a vote against the president. Palin said, and we talked about this, incidentally, Sarah Palin has endorsed Luther Strangelove. Oh, now this is very interesting here. Uncle Ben, we don't hear much from him anymore. He's at Housing Urban Development, issued a statement Friday backing Judge Moore. An extraordinary endorsement that came just hours before Trump was set to arrive in Alabama. Judge Moore is a fine man, a proven character and integrity, who I have come to respect over the years, as Uncle Ben said. He is truly someone who reflects Christian values that were so important to the establishment of the country. Recent polls show Luther Strangelove trailing. And DJ Trump warned him that Judge Moore could lose to the Democrat there. Friends of mine have told me very strongly that if Luther wasn't appointed in office, he would be leading by 50 points, Trump said. So Trump was thinking out loud here. He was appointed by a corrupt governor named Bentley, who was forced to resign. There are questions even about that, period. And this was Beauregard Sessions' old seat. If Luther doesn't make it, they're going to go after me, Trump said, referring to the media. He went to third, second, and now it's almost pretty even, right? I guess DJ Trump's already thinking Big Luther may not cross the finish line, but perhaps old Big Luther has a few balls to shoot. We'll do the sports now. Go to ESPN. This is quasi-live, so it's not bad. We actually do this live, so again, you hear of this as we do it here, and obviously it's not perfect, because we're moving from a topic to topic. On the Monday Morning Quarterback, incidentally, we'll still be looking at these races, how they are moving. There's, I believe, about 9 games, or less than 9 games to go. This is from Friday night. The Rays were again in Camden Yard, Rays 8-3. The Cardinals were in Pittsburgh, Cardinals 4-2. The Yankees were in Toronto. Toronto won the game 8-1. The Twins were in the Motor City, Twins 7-3. The Red Sox in Cincy, Sox 5-4. The Nationals were in New York, Metropolitans 7-6. A good game there. And in 10, we had 10 a night before last. 10 again. The Cubbies, World Series winners, but not repeaters, were in Milwaukee. Final score 5-4. Mr. Edwards was the winner there, and the Cubbies had 9 hits, no errors, and the Brewers 8 hits and no errors. They'll be at it again tomorrow, and also I believe on Sunday. The Phillies were in Atlanta. Atlanta 7-2. Two teams that are going nowhere. The Royals and White Sox on the south side of Chicago. Sox 7-6 over the Royals. The Angels were in Houston and were shut out by the Astros 3-zip. The Marlins were in Arizona. D-backs, a high-scoring game there. D-backs 13-11. The Marlins had 11 hits, 1 error. And the D-backs 15 hits, no errors. Classic for winning games. The Rangers and Athletics out in Oakland. Athletics 4-1. Cleveland and the Mariners in Seattle. Seattle pulled the game out 3-1. The Giants and Dodgers down in Los Angeles. Mr. Hill was a winner there. Dodgers 4-2. They're starting to win again. And the Rockies and Padres in San Diego. Padres 4-1. Now let's look at the tenuous standings here and see where we are today. And the Red Sox have already won something. They won buy and or bid, what do you want to call it? Anyway, the Yankees are 4 games back. That's in the American League East. Cleveland has done the same in the Central. The Twins are 16 games back. Forget it. But the wild card race is a little different. Houston has clinched their division. The Rangers are 18 games back there in the that's the American League West. In the National League East, it's all Nationals. The Cubbies are up in the Central, and still very close race. 5 games back of the Cards, 5.5, in other words, back of the Brewers. So those 2 teams will be going down to the wire, and one could make that one-day playoff. The Dodgers and D-backs. D-backs are still in contention. So that is where we are. And let's see if we get anything here. I'm not sure. Looking at the hunt for October. Oh, okay. To see exactly where we are. The wild card. Right now, it could be Minnesota at New York. We don't know. In the National League, we have, who do we have? The Rockies and Arizona could be there. And the leaders, 4-3 in the series, the Cubs and the Nationals. That's in the National League. In the American League, we have Boston, and, of course, New York, 4 games back. In the National League, of course, Washington, it's all Washington. So games remaining are 9 games. The Sox will be in Cincy, and then they'll be in Toronto. That's the remaining schedule there. The Nationals will be in be at the Mets. They'll be at the Phillies. 3 games down the 27th. And the Yankees will remain in games. They have 9, 7 home games and 2 away. Toronto, they'll be in Kansas City. And the Rays, they'll finish it up. And let's see, did we get the same thing? Washington, 9. 4 home games and 5 away for Washington. And let's see, we don't see it here. Anyway, Cleveland, they have 8 games. 6 will be at home and 2 will be away for Cleveland. The Cubbies, they have 3 home games and 6 away. So they'll be on the road at the end of the month, the 27th, down in St. Louis. And they, of course, are at the Brewers this weekend. The Royals, they will be with the White Sox. They're there now. Then they go to the Yankees. They have 9 games also. 6 at home, 3 away. The Cardinals have 7 at home and 2 away. They'll finish up at Wrigley Field in Chicago. And just looking at some of these, the Houston will have 2 home games and 7 away. They'll be on the road. The Dodgers will have 5 home games, and 3 of them they'll finish up in San Diego. The the Astros will finish up in Texas. The Texas Rangers, they'll be on the road also. They have 7 home games and 2 will be away. The Arizona Diamondbacks, they have 8 games remaining, 5 at home and 2 away. They'll finish up in San Francisco. They are now playing the Marlins in Florida. The American Wild League wild card there. The Giants are on top, then Minnesota. Giants, yeah. And then we have Anaheim. They're leading in the back. There's the American League wild card. The National League wild card, Arizona is 99.9%. Then we have Colorado and St. Louis and Miami there also. So we'll see. I'll do it there. We'll see you on the Monday morning quarterback on Monday morning here. And I am not decided yet if we'll do special Sunday programming or not. We do have that debate. You will hear the debate. On some of these channels, you'll hear the Lincoln Douglas style debate between Judge Roy Moore and Luther Strangelove, known as Big Luther, this weekend, and probably on Tuesday morning on some other outlets. That debate will in its entirety, and some commentary from us. And Numbers Man will appear here, and we'll have, I'm not certain how we'll do this in a programming situation. We'll hear from the chair, Dr. Yellen, her news conference, and our analysis of it, and some other things where we'll have one program or two. That's on Numbers Man, the macroeconomic program from WBRN Radio. And hopefully we'll get the open source report up also. And we have some unfinished business with the UN meeting this week in New York, and that will be on BR on the World. That's our international affairs program, which will reappear. Nonetheless, have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on Monday morning as Boston Red. A lot of playoff action coming up here as we go into the final week of the National League, National Baseball League, and we'll start in October with the long playoffs that will go through October. Wild cards, league championships, etc., and then on to the World Series.